The Colosseum was shaped like a sunken crown of glass and steel, orbiting above a dead moon in Sector Damaris. A stadium forged not for sport or diplomacy, but for humiliation. That was the Galactic Empire's style: public justice, performed like theater, then transmitted in high-definition silence to 17,000 worlds. 3 humans stood on the execution dais, each with a noose dangling from above like a polite invitation to die. The woman in the center, General Helena Sharp, adjusted the sleeve of her torn Navy uniform. A gash ran across her brow, dried blood curling like an eyebrow of rust. Despite the grime, she stood tall, her hands bound behind her back with transparent restraints that glowed faintly blue. Her lips wore a smile, not broad, not mocking, just amused. To her left, General Boone, an old warhorse with crow's feet deep as tactical trench maps, squinted toward the alien delegation box. His silver hair was cropped high and tight. If the Empire had given him 5 seconds and a sharp stick, he'd have taken the whole platform with him. To her right, General Rio Morales, the youngest of the trio, rolled a toothpick between his teeth. His fingers, calloused and twitchy, tapped against his thigh like he was sinking a beat. He wore his usual look, lazy genius with a hint of menace. The executioner, a towering lizard-like Droxel, cleared his throat, a disturbing hiss like gravel boiling. His translator buzzed, "Crimes against galactic sovereignty. Subversion. Bioespionage. Unauthorized terraforming. Non-compliant humor. Sentence. Broadcast execution." The crowd of aliens roared, a cacophony of chirps, howls, and synthetic cheers from across the sectors. Most didn't understand the nuances, only that humans had once again embarrassed the Empire. And embarrassment demanded spectacle. "Are my lashes uneven?" Helena asked, turning to Boone. Boone's brow arched. "You're about to be strangled to death by a lizard in robes, and that's your concern? Well, we've all got roles. I'm the martyr. You're the reluctant hero. And Morales here is clearly the wild card." "I resent that," Morales said, then added, "also accurate." The Droxel stepped forward. "Do you wish to confess your crimes before death?" Helena tilted her chin. "We already did. In triplicate. With footnotes. You filed them upside down." A ripple of laughter came from one corner, an alien diplomat who quickly pretended to cough. The Droxel snarled, offended not by the insult, but by the lack of fear. This was not how condemned species were supposed to act. High above, camera drones hovered. Each bore the Imperial seal and a countdown overlay. 1 minute and 59 seconds. Boone watched the clock. "It's almost cute they gave us a timer. Like a cooking show. Just waiting for the souffle to rise." Helena's gaze drifted toward the broadcast screen, a massive hollow projecting their images across the arena. Billions were watching. Billions, hoping to see humanity bend. That was the mistake. Humans didn't bend. They set timers. Below them, the audience glistened. Species of every shape and sulphurous shade, crowded in layers. The Empire had invited the galaxy to this. Called it a message of closure. The final culling of a dangerous race. "We should have worn matching suits," Morales muttered. "If I knew we were going to be fashion icons before execution, I'd have picked darker slacks." "Your slacks are fine," Helena said. "It's your heartbeat I'm more curious about." He grinned, glancing sideways. "Down to 42 BPM. You. 65. Boone." Boone muttered, 63. "Give or take a war." Helena nodded once. They were calm. Perfect. The Droxel raised a claw, signaling the rope-bearers to approach. 3 aliens in ceremonial armor moved forward, their faces hidden behind mirrored masks. They draped the thick cords over the humans' necks. Helena leaned into hers slightly, like testing a silk scarf. Morales bit his toothpick in half. From the diplomat booth, Chancellor Varran of the Valari leaned forward. She was old, insectoid, and weary, not of age, but of patterns. Something itched behind her cluster of black eyes. Something about this didn't smell right. She tapped her aide. "What was their yield during the last ambush?" Minimal resistance, ma'am, her aide replied. They surrendered within 23 minutes. Humans never surrender in 23 minutes, she said quietly. On the stage, Helena closed her eyes briefly. Just a blink. A breath. 3, 2, she whispered. The Droxel flinched. What are you counting? She opened her eyes. Oh, not the time until our deaths. The time until yours. The Droxel froze. The air shifted. Then, Morales looked up at the camera and winked. Say cheese. The crowd gasped as the drones flickered. Every feed across the galaxy began to stutter, fragment, and invert. The countdown timer froze on 2 seconds, then began counting up. A slow whine filled the Colosseum, like something winding inward. The nooses didn't tighten. Instead, they smoked. Tiny sparks, almost invisible, shimmered at the point where rope met neck. Then, FZZT. The ropes burned away in a near-silent wave of nanothermal light, falling like ash to the dais. The audience stood. The alien guards stepped forward, weapons rising. And then all light died. Absolute blackout. Helena's voice rose in the pitch dark. You should have wondered why we smiled. A heartbeat later, the stadium lights blinked back on, but just overhead, flickering and blue. The crowd's exit paths were sealed. The guards' weapons failed to respond. The Droxel stared at his own rifle, shaking it, panicking. Boone rolled his shoulders. 12 years of planning, and their security still runs on second-gen interface chips. Cute. Morales dusted off his pants. You ever seen a Droxel wet himself? I have now. Above, in the orbit beyond the arena dome, a dozen Imperial cruisers began to spin slowly, engines online, but no heat signatures. Ghost ships. The Valari Chancellor stood slowly. Evacuate. She stopped. Across the arena's holodisplay, a new feed appeared. Not from the Empire system, but a human override, pirated and planted long ago. It showed Earth. But not Earth's warships. Earth's memories. Clips of fire. Of children being pulled from rubble. Of alien ships glassing settlements. Of declarations of peace. And betrayals answered with warheads. Entire species cheering the Empire's strikes on human colonies. Then came silence. And then Helena's voice, crisp, recorded long ago. You taught us fear. You taught us caution. You taught us patience. But you never asked what we were teaching ourselves while we smiled at your boots. The Droxel staggered back, his translator crackling. Helena stepped forward, voice calm. The rope was never for us. Boone followed her down the steps. You came to kill 3 humans. Morales hopped down last, stretching. Instead, you woke 8 billion. In the control booth, the Valari aide screamed, Their fleet, it's here. In orbit. But they're not firing, they're just watching. Chancellor Varan stared at the humans on the screen. Helena turned her face directly toward the drone's final working lens and said, clearly, coldly, and not without sorrow. 5 seconds till the lights go out. 4, 3. The entire screen went black. The silence after the blackout wasn't empty. It was charged. Not with fear. Not with rage. But with that electric pause right before thunder, when the world holds its breath and decides what kind of storm it will be. And in that moment, General Helena Sharp stood at the center of the Colosseum like the eye of it. The lights returned in pulses, not all at once. A few sparks in the rafters, flickering beams crisscrossing over the arena's trembling faces, like searchlights looking for sense in a war that had already moved past their comprehension. The alien crowd shifted, murmuring, clawed hands gripping seats, tentacles coiled tight. They had come for a spectacle, for a show of dominance. But the script had rewritten itself, mid-performance. Helena stepped forward from the smoldering ruins of her execution rope. The ash floated like dry snow, catching in the high light, drifting gently onto alien fur, chitin, scale. She walked without hurry, without fear, as if she owned the air between her and every living being watching. Lights are back, Morales muttered behind her. Told you the surge would only last 8 seconds. 7.9, Boone corrected. Your math's slipping. I was accounting for dramatic pause. Still sloppy. Helena didn't smile, but something in her posture eased. They were fine. The power had returned, yes, but not under the Empire's command. The energy grid, once controlled by a trillion-credit AI mainframe orbiting Sector Prime, now ran on a rerouted lattice, courtesy of Morales's sloppy math and a virus disguised as a coffee machine firmware update. Above them, on the main broadcast screen, the image had changed again. The Empire's seal flickered, corrupted, replaced now by a spinning wireframe of a rope, its fibers slowly unraveling. Helena turned, facing the Droxel executioner. He hadn't moved. His translator blinked red. His weapon drooped in one claw, sparking faintly, useless. "We're not here to gloat," she said quietly. "Not yet." The Droxel hissed, but no words came. His vocal cords trembled, unsure of whether to speak, scream, or kneel. "We let you bring us here," Boone said, stepping beside her. "We let you shackle us, parade us like trophies." "You never asked why," Morales added, tapping the side of his head. "Because you never ask. You assume." The Droxel tried to speak, and finally croaked, "You are prisoners." Helena stepped in close, her breath fogging against his scaled face. "We were witnesses. You just didn't know what we were watching." From the Imperial High Booth, Chancellor Varan stood rigid, mandibles twitching in thought. She didn't speak. She simply pressed 2 fingers to her temple, a neural override command, meant to alert Fleet Command to respond immediately. Nothing happened. "Signal's dead," her aide whispered. "We're cut off." "How?" Varan demanded. "They didn't jam US," her aide murmured. "They rewrote the gate." Varan's eyes, 6 of them, narrowed. Her voice was soft. "So the rope was never for them." The holograms across the stadium shifted again. The galaxy's map. Dots blinking out, systems going dark. Not from attack. Not yet. But from silence. Unreachable. Offline. System by system. Morales tilted his head, watching it unfold. "You ever play dominoes, Droxel?" The lizard didn't reply. "They fall one after the other," Morales went on, still rolling his toothpick. "But if you set them up right, they fall in a way that tells a story. This story's just getting started." Boone glanced up toward the sky. "They're not coming, are they?" "Nope," Helena said. "And why's that again?" Morales asked, grinning like a man who knew the answer. Helena looked toward the northern arc of the arena, where the sun-filtered dome offered a view into orbit. Nothing moved, no ships rushing in to restore order, no reinforcements descending. Just the stars, blinking slowly, as if waiting. "Because we turned off the future," she said. The alien crowds began to murmur, fear spreading like a scent. Some tried to stand. Some started toward the exits. Then the stadium doors slammed shut. Sealed. Not with force, but with code. A single line of text blinked across every exit screen in every language. "You are now a guest of human consequence." Panic flared, not in screams, but in the cold churn of confusion. They hadn't prepared for this. The Empire's arrogance hadn't allowed the possibility of failure, let alone subversion. "You've been studying us for centuries," Helena said to the crowd, her voice amplified now by the arena's systems. "You know our weapons, our treaties, our weaknesses, but not our grief, not our silence, not our patience." She paused, letting the quiet settle. "You hanged our children first. You just didn't hang them with rope." Boone's jaw tightened. He looked at nothing. Not the crowd. Not the screens. Just inward, where memory boiled. "We warned you," he muttered. "Again and again. Diplomats. Treaties. Back channels." Morales nodded. "You burned the olive branches. Now you get the fire." In orbit, one of the dormant ships flared to life. A massive Earth-class dreadnought. Old model. Refit. Sleeping in plain sight above the Empire's capital for 5 years. It turned slowly. Not toward the city. Toward the cameras. Its hull bore a name in white stenciled paint. HGS Quiet Restraint. Helena smiled softly at the irony. They'd chosen the name as a warning no one would hear until it was too late. Boone turned to her, voice low. How long before they try to fire on us? They won't, Helena said. They can't. We rewrote their loyalty trees. Their own defense drones are running diagnostics in circles. They'll find a way, Morales said. I'm counting on it, she replied. From her coat, she withdrew a small, elegant device, a human-made tactical slate. The interface shimmered with options, most of them locked. All but one, execute protocol rope burn. She didn't press it. She held it aloft, letting the camera drones catch it. This isn't conquest, she said. This isn't retaliation. It's prevention. A voice broke through the crowd. It came from a lower-tier diplomat, a Skalite, all horn and hair. What do you want? He cried. Name your terms. Helena looked down at him, sadness swimming behind her eyes. You think this is a negotiation? The crowd stilled again. She looked to Morales. Status. Morales tapped his ear, then frowned. 3 systems are evacuating their command chains. Too late. They're just realizing they don't have chain of command anymore. Boone. Boone cracked his knuckles. 5 fleet admirals just resigned. Looks like one tried to defect. Guess where? Helena turned her gaze back to the Droxel. Do you understand now? The rope never dropped, because we never built it for our necks. We built it for yours. And we gave you centuries to notice. The Droxel shuddered, falling to one knee. Morales sighed. And here comes the begging. Helena looked away from the execution stand and back toward the screen. A live transmission was coming through. Not Empire-controlled. Human faces. Not soldiers. Families. Children. Scholars. Survivors. One girl, no more than 7, stared through the feed, her voice a whisper. Why did they take my brothers? Helena's face hardened. Because they thought we'd never answer. She looked down at the slate again. Not yet. Not yet. She handed it to Boone. Hold it, she said. Until they understand. The general took it without a word. Helena turned back toward the crowd, her voice calm but steel-lined. This moment was a gift. A demonstration. You think you understand human war. You've never even met human mercy. One of the screen drones exploded. Everyone flinched. Helena didn't move. She reached up, brushing ash from her collar, then said softly, And if mercy fails, we're prepared for that too. It started with the stars. Not the big ones, not the ones mapped and named and claimed in treaties and textbooks. The small ones. Settlement stars. Trading posts. Way stations built on moons no one remembered until they were gone. They blinked out. One by one. The Colosseum's central screen, still held hostage by the quiet restraints override, displayed a live galactic map. It pulsed with red flares as transmission lines failed across the Empire. The feed didn't dramatize. No explosions. No screaming. Just a cold map and slowly disappearing lights. They're not attacking, someone in the audience whispered. They're erasing. Helena stood still, hands folded behind her back, eyes fixed on the screen as if she could see each vanished outpost. Her breath was steady, too steady for a general who'd just survived an execution. But that was the thing with Helena Sharp. War never unsettled her. What unnerved her were the moments after war, when people smiled like nothing had happened. Boone stood beside her, jaw clenched. Every day that blinked out wasn't just a strategy fulfilled. It was a name. A memory. A system that once laughed when Earth first arrived in the galaxy, calling humanity a temporary species. Morales leaned against the dais railing, chewing on a new toothpick. His tone was casual, but his eyes were focused. "That's 47 systems down," he said, "including Coraxus. That one's important, right?" Boone didn't answer. Helena did. "That was where they forced a peace accord. Then bombed the refugee camps on day 3. Morales nodded, half sighing. "Yeah. Worth blinking." A group of alien dignitaries rushed the edge of the arena, demanding access to communication relays. Each of them shouted in a different language, demanding rights, information, mercy. None were granted. A hologram projected above them, spinning, massive. The quiet restraint was relaying Earth's message. There was no voice, just images. A planet, broken in half. A boy clutching his dog in the ruins of a terraformed slum. A human soldier holding the hand of an alien child, the child burned by orbital fire. Then came a date, Vesper Protocol, initiated 18 years ago. The crowd went silent. 18. Morales whispered. "Feels longer." "It was longer," Helena said. 18 is when we made it official. But the rope began weaving itself long before. Boone stepped forward, addressing the crowd, not with threats, but with truth. "You fed us ideals, then laughed when we choked on them. You offered peace through teeth. We swallowed it. Then we buried our dead. And we studied." He turned, looking toward the broadcast drones. "We studied your systems, your cultures, your pride. And we learned something simple. Empires don't collapse from war. They collapse from silence." Morales chuckled softly. "You told us we were fragile. What you didn't know is we made peace with being breakable. It's how we get sharp." A young alien, barely of age by his species count, stood up in the gallery. His skin shimmered with frightened color. He held a translator sphere to his chest. "You can't punish an entire galaxy. You'll become what you claim to hate." Helena met his eyes, and for a moment, she wasn't a general. She was a woman who'd outlived her own homeworld, stood in cratered ruins, and still remembered the smell of summer grass from before the invasion. "I don't hate," she said. "I remember." The boy flinched. Not from anger, but from the weight of that word. A signal blipped in Boone's earpiece. He didn't move, didn't react. Just turned slightly toward Helena. "They've begun petitions," he said quietly. "Not resistance. Surrender." One sector sent a coded request for protection. From the Empire. "From their own empire," Morales said, shaking his head. "Now that's irony." Helena didn't smile. "They don't need protection from the Empire," she said. "They need protection from themselves. The ones who let this happen. The ones who cheered." She stepped to the center of the arena once more, letting her boots echo against the hollow metal floor. "Listen carefully," she said. "This is not vengeance. This is consequence. For every child suffocated in mine labor atmospheres. For every settlement marked non-compliant, then vaporized at dawn. For every planet where humans were used as warnings to others." She paused. "You mistook our quiet for weakness. You mistook our fear for surrender. But fear taught us to listen. And listening taught us how to dismantle you." Across the stadium, more doors sealed. Boone looked skyward. 3 more ships just arrived. Ours. Unarmed. Broadcasting emergency beacons. "They're here for the Watchers," Helena said. "For the neutral planets. They came to see the hanging. Now they'll see what kind of knot holds an empire together." Morales crossed his arms. "This is the part where they start offering deals." And they did. Messages flooded in from command posts, from regional governors, from trembling sectors offering tribute, land, apology, anything. Boone read one aloud. "To the Human Alliance, we beg mercy. We see the error. We will denounce the Empire if you spare us." Helena took the slate and erased the message without reading the rest. "Mercy isn't a bargain," she said. "It's a decision. And it's not theirs to ask for. The central screen shifted once more. Now it showed Varela, a planet famous for its pleasure domes and silks woven from live-bred bioworms. It also had the highest record of human slave auctions during the subjugation years. The image zoomed in. Its atmosphere shivered, then pulsed. Communications went dark. Another blink. Morales exhaled. Damn. That one had good music, Boone murmured, and bad memories. From the stands, Varan of the Valari stood again. Her translator buzzed as she spoke. Enough. Your point is made. The galaxy will remember this. What you do next will define your species. Helena raised her head. We're not trying to define ourselves to you. We're reminding ourselves of what we'll never allow again. She stepped forward, lowering her voice. You erased our dignity once. You paraded us like beasts. You turned kindness into naivety. But we took that pain and built a mirror out of it. Now you're looking into it. More lights blinked out on the map. Empire sectors that once declared themselves untouchable. Now dark. Not destroyed. Just unreachable. Varen's mandibles trembled. You'll collapse the economy. Billions. We know, Boone said. That's why we waited until the food banks were full and the clean water stabilized. You planned that? The Valari asked. Of course, Morales replied. What, you thought we were just going to burn things? Please. We're not animals. We're humans. A final screen appeared overhead, Helena's pre-recorded message, voice comm, backdropped by a child's drawing of Earth and the stars. We didn't want this. We offered treaties. We offered silence. We offered time. And when that failed, we offered a mirror. What you see now is not hate. It is clarity. Boone turned to Helena. Signal from the inner reach just cut. They're going dark on purpose. Voluntary blackout. Too afraid to speak. Good, Helena said. Why? Morales asked. Because it means they've started listening. The Colosseum dimmed once more. The final transmission blinked. Silence again. And in that silence, Helena took the tactical slate, keyed in a new code, and stared down at the blank screen. We won't erase them all, she said. Just enough for them to remember the cost of forgetting us. Morales whispered. How many more? Boone answered. Enough. And then, far in the distance, a child's voice crackled through the open channel. Mom, is the war over now? No one answered. Not yet. The stillness after the blackout was not peace. It was proof. Proof that the Empire could be silenced, that its power could falter, that the grand illusion of invincibility had hairline fractures. Across the galaxy, a million species were watching, waiting, afraid to ask the real question rising in every throat. What if we were never in charge at all? Helena stood at the center of the dais, her posture neither gloating nor meek. She was calm, deadly calm, like a tide that had finally reached the cliff face and was now deciding how hard to crash. Beside her, Boone paced a slow circle, his boots echoing on the Colosseum floor. Morales sat on the edge of the stage, flicking a modified data chip between his fingers, the quiet tap-tap-tap sounding more ominous now than any speech. You hear that? Morales murmured. Hear what? Boone asked, not slowing. Exactly. Helena turned her head slightly. The Colosseum, moments ago a circus of cheers and mocking chants, was silent. Not just stunned, but reflective. A silence that had weight, like a closed door, like a realization that had come too late. They're thinking, she said. And that's when they're most dangerous. From above, the quiet restraint's hull shimmered in the filtered atmosphere. The dreadnought had not moved, had not fired. It simply hovered, a threat so casual it was terrifying. It wasn't aiming to conquer. It was watching, evaluating, like a teacher with the test already scored. The central screen bloomed again, this time revealing not footage of Earth or war, but live feeds from across the galaxy. Empire command centers, civilian broadcasts, planetary governors. Most of them stood frozen in front of cameras, blinking, unsure what to say now that the execution had become a crucifixion of their own illusion. One feed crackled through, a military leader from Sector Regos, Admiral Corthan, known for his brutality during the human containment uprisings. His voice wavered under a veil of forced composure. To the humans, we underestimated you. Clearly, we are open to dialogue. A revised armistice. A recalibrated status. Boone barked a laugh. Listen to that. He's already shifting vocabulary like it's a diplomatic dress rehearsal. Revised armistice, Morales repeated. That's code for, please don't blink my house. Helena didn't smile. This was never about negotiation. Varan, still watching from the upper gallery, stepped forward to her glass railing. She activated her long-range projector and spoke, her voice carefully modulated. General Sharp, you've made your message. A devastating one. But surely you recognize the scale of what you've begun. The collapse of galactic infrastructure is not an answer. It's a catastrophe. Helena turned to her without rising. We didn't begin it, Chancellor. We ended the illusion that it had no cost. You set traps, Varan countered. You let us try to kill you. No, Helena said. We let you prove you would. The words rang through the amphitheater with a soft, unmistakable finality. It had never been a game of cat and mouse. It had been a test of species. And the Empire had failed. Boone stepped forward, taking up the thread. We studied your systems. We reverse-engineered your weapons. But most of all, we watched how you treat weakness. Every time you face someone with less than you brutalize them. You turned culture into compliance. Education into obedience. Love into leverage. Morales hopped off the ledge, flipping his data chip once more. You taught us how to win. All we had to do was let you fail in front of everyone. The screen changed again. This time, the Empire's own education feeds. Archive footage. Propaganda lessons from their elite academies. Mock-up simulations showing human soldiers as erratic, overly emotional, prone to infighting. The audience watched in shame as the lies unraveled, play by play, disproven by everything they'd just seen. Why now? Varan asked. You've waited decades. Why not do this earlier? Because you weren't ready to see yourselves, Helena said. And we weren't ready to show you everything. From beneath her uniform collar, she pulled a pendant. It wasn't ornamental. It was a control key, one that had lived under the nose of every Empire search scan. She pressed it once, and above the Colosseum, the atmosphere flickered. A massive projection bloomed. Not just ships. Not just strategies. It was a mosaic of humanity's preparation, diplomacy missions that were secretly recon, cultural exchanges that seeded quiet malware, trade ships that delivered nanite clouds into satellite arrays. 100,000 small kindnesses, each with a hidden edge. The screen ended on one final image, a treaty, signed in gold ink, with human fingerprints smudged along the bottom. Boone looked up at it. We didn't come here to take the galaxy. We came to see if it deserved to survive itself. And it doesn't? Varan asked, softly now. Helena's eyes met hers. That's not my decision. That's yours. You were never sentencing us. We were testing you. A murmur passed through the audience like wind in dry grass. Morales tossed the data chip to a nearby drone, which immediately triggered a feed from a neutral planet, Hollow's Reach. The people there, reptilian and scholarly, had long remained uninvolved in galactic affairs. But the screen now showed them cheering, raising human flags. Not in submission. In gratitude. Helena turned her back to the crowd. Her message had been sent. Now it was time for the weight of it to settle. Humanity doesn't need domination, she said quietly to her team. We just needed the galaxy to understand that our kindness has limits. Boone stepped beside her. We still go through with it? Helena nodded once. Not full collapse. Not yet. But enough to ensure they remember this moment. And what about the others? Morales asked. The ones who helped us. The aliens who sheltered us. The few who tried. Helena looked toward the drone, then toward the stars. We leave them untouched. Let kindness echo too. From the quiet restraint above, a new signal was issued. Not an attack. Not a withdrawal. A countdown. It wasn't directed at the Empire's ships. It was directed at their archives. Their truth. The purge of memory, Boone said. They always feared it more than death. They should, Helena replied. Because now everyone will know. Every torture. Every lie. Every time they called us animals and wondered why we grew teeth. The drone feed picked up a new message, unauthorized, unsanctioned. From a child on a mining colony once called Jerix, 5. Her face was dirty. Her eyes were bright. Thank you, she whispered. Just that. It landed like thunder. The Colosseum's lights dimmed. Not by force, but in respect. Varan lowered her head. What happens now? Helena looked upward, the stars reflecting in her eyes. Now, she said. Now the galaxy gets a choice. Change or vanish. And then, without fanfare, without victory speeches, without ships firing a single shot, the quiet restraint began transmitting everything. The files, the crimes, the maps, the classified orders signed in secret chambers. They didn't destroy the Empire. They simply showed it. And the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, had to look in the mirror. Helena handed the pendant to Boone. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of it all. We were never the bait, she whispered. They were. Boone nodded. And we were the trap. Morales slung his coat over his shoulder, stepping off the dais for the last time. Well, he muttered, I guess the test results are in. Helena turned, facing the audience one last time. Some were crying. Some had left. Some had gone perfectly still. But all were listening. We don't demand loyalty, she said. We don't require obedience. But from this moment on, the galaxy answers to truth. Then she stepped down from the platform, not as a prisoner, not as a general, but as something far more dangerous. A teacher who had just finished her lesson. And somewhere far above, in the vast hush of space, the human fleet began to blink, one light at a time, like stars warming the dark. Not to attack, but to wait, and see who deserved to remain.